this session, we're going to take a look at the system tray utility of the EventSentry agent called EventSentray. Since the configuration for this utility is very simple, I'm going to go over the feature set of that tray utility first. So this utility is enabled by default, and you'll see it on the bottom right of your tray. If it's not there, then you may have to configure your taskbar in the taskbar settings here, for example, to show that utility. So it'd be that option, you select which icons appear on the taskbar. You'll have to turn the EventSentry tray monitor on here. So once it's turned on, or if it shows up by default, there's a few things you can do with it. So the first thing that you can get just by hovering over it is you'll see the name of the host that you connected to. You'll see the uptime of the host, and you'll also see the version of the agent that's running. If you right click it, you get a context menu and with a few options, and we're going to take a look at the first one, which is system info. So that's the main functionality of this utility, especially for system administrators. So if you have this running on all of your monitored equipment, all your servers, and you log in, then you'll have access to this utility by default. And let's bring this up. It'll take a couple of seconds to appear, but there's a lot of information you can get right away once you bring that dialog up. So it's similar to Task Manager, but it has a few additional things at a glance. This is not intended to necessarily be a replacement for the Windows Task Manager, which has other functionality, but this is designed to give you an immediate status overview of the host that you connected to. And you'll see four metrics first. You'll see the CPU utilization, you'll see the memory utilization, the disk queue length, so how busy are your disks, along with the network utilization. So immediately you have all these stats here occupying the main part of this dialog. The dialog title itself gives you again the host name and the version of Windows that you're running. Then obviously here on the right side you can see all the hard drives that are available on the system, all the fixed drives, so not network drives, but fixed drives, along with their disk space usage. And if you hover over it, you'll see the actual physical devices behind these charts. If you hover over the actual CPU chart, then you'll see the actual CPU behind it, the speed and how many cores, etc., etc. With memory, you'll see how much physical memory is installed on that machine. The disks, there's nothing there because you already get that information when you hover over the disk space usage there. And here you'll see which network adapter has been picked, for the network utilization. Also extremely useful on the bottom there is you'll see the top 3 processes in terms of CPU and memory utilization. So if you log into that server and CPU utilization is high, then you can immediately take a look here and see what's going on, which process may be using the most CPU or memory, for example. You'll also see the IP address of that host and the network speed, and you'll also see if that host needs a reboot or not. And if another user is logged on to that server while you are logged on, then you'll see that information on the bottom there. So again, it's a great way to just get an immediate overview of what's happening on that server, which processes are busy, what's disk space utilization look like, and what's the performance of this server along with the name and the OS, and does that server need a reboot because of Windows updates, for example, and also the network speed. If you're using that utility on a laptop, for example, then you can also use the internet test functionality to see if this computer has a valid internet connection. So it's not so useful on a LAN, even though it can be of use there as well, of course. But if you're on a laptop, for example, traveling on an airport, on your mobile hotspot, whatnot, and you want to see, hey, is my internet actually working? Then you can click on the internet test button. And what that will do is it will first of all, it'll do a check to see if the internet can be reached, and you'll see that on the very left with that green checkbox. And it will do various checks. What's the latency right now? Packet loss? Can the gateway be reached? If it cannot be reached or cannot be determined, then it'll just be blank, like in this case. It'll also do a DNS check. And you'll also see the external IP address, and if it can be resolved, the host name behind it. And of course, finally, if that host is on a Wi-Fi network, then you'll see the SSID that it's connected to. And you can leave this dialog open. You can just leave it on the bottom right there. For example, if you're on an unstable network and you kind of just want to monitor the latency, for example, the packet loss, and it doesn't occupy a lot of space, and it can be really useful to kind of get an idea of, well, okay, are my problems because of my internet connection, or other issues. Another nice feature, especially when you're utilizing EventSentry with other sysadmins, is the ability to add notes to the web reports right from the tray. So if you go to the web reports, you'll notice that on the very, close this here, on the top there's a icon called notes. And what you can do there basically is you can leave notes of things that are happening in infrastructure. You can tag hosts. For example, I can tag our EventSentry server here and leave a note and say, you know, fixed ABC, for example, or installed ABC and so forth. And anybody who views the host inventory page, for example, of that server will see those notes in there. So if we go here to the feature host, for example, and we pick the EventSentry server there, then we have a documentation tab here, and that will show any notes that were tagged to the system. But you can also tag notes, but not tag notes, and have them be global notes. So if you're doing some general things on the infrastructure, like removing a server, adding a server, or whatever it may be, they'll show up there. And you can see those under settings notes. So there's nothing really here yet, unless we have to go back a little further. Yes, so there's a note here that's a bit outdated, test note during purge job. So this is what that would basically look like. But sometimes, you know, you don't necessarily always have the web reports available or open, and it's extremely useful that when you're logging into, let's say, a remote server, that you have the ability to simply leave a note right there without needing access to the web reports. And you do that just by right-clicking, saying Add Note. And you can say, recording a training session. You can include a screenshot that will show up here in the web reports as well, and then just click OK. And it will say note was submitted successfully. And that's automatically going to be associated, tagged with this host. So if I do another search here from today, then we'll have the note here that says recording a training session. We can see which user added a note, and you never have to actually log in to the web reports to leave that note. So it makes it extremely easy and makes collaborating a lot easier. Now, as far as the configuration of this feature is concerned, it's very, very straightforward. Under System Health, by default, there's a System Tray Health package that contains the tray application object. But of course, you can create a new package there and add the tray application here as well. And there's not a whole lot that needs to be configured, at least not for the base functionality. So the allow notes, so the feature that we saw earlier where I added a note and it shows up in the web reports, so that can be enabled or disabled. It's enabled by default, and you pick the database where this is written to. Whether screenshots are allowed can be configured here. And that's pretty much it for the basic functionality. Now, in the second part of this video, I'm going to go into the actual support tickets that you can also utilize the tray icon for. But as far as the actual tray icon that helps you with system administration, allows you to add notes and so forth, that's pretty much it. Now we're going to take a look at the support ticket functionality in EventSentray. With this feature, you can allow your end users to submit support tickets through the tray icon and give them the ability to specify a subject, a message, and the ability to include the screenshot. These support tickets then can either be delivered via email, so you can get an email into your inbox, or it can also be linked to an HTTP action that will allow you to submit a ticket in a ticketing system, for example. Right now, I'm going to show how this works with email being selected. So the first thing you'll have to do is enable that option. It's not enabled by default. And as soon as you enable support tickets, when you right-click the tray icon, you will see a support request option right here. If you disable that, then you won't see that. Your end users won't see that option. Once you click that, you open up a very simple dialog that allows you to put in your email address. So let's just say joe@company.com. I cannot print, obviously. I cannot print documents, important documents. And then you can click the include screenshot option here. So if the end user, for example, let's say were to be active in Notepad, and he would go to File and Print, and there being no options available, confusing the user, then you could say include screenshot here and simply click OK. So now the support ticket was submitted successfully. We're not going to install a printer and hit cancel here. And here you can just control whether an email, for example, is required or whether a subject is required as well. So what does this look like when it comes into your inbox? Let's take a look at that. So this is what that email would look like in Outlook. At the very top here, we can see the actual message that I submitted. I cannot print important documents. Down below, we have a few lines of information that are generally useful for troubleshooting. So it shows you the user of who submitted this, from which host they submitted it, gives you some basic information. So you'll know, is this a Windows 10, Windows 11 machine? With the IP address, you can see the uptime of that host. So you could, for example, see if that workstation hadn't been rebooted in a year. CPU and memory usage. Again, on top of that, of course, we also always have the standard logged on user information as well, in case there's more people logged on, and the version of the agent along with the configuration revision. Since we included the screenshot, we can see that here as well. And yeah, you can see the screenshot. So this is exactly what we saw without the actual dialog, of course. So this helps to kind of get an idea. Okay, well, he can't print because there's no printer installed.